This is a Fox News alert. Iran spending the morning attacking its Gulf neighbors. Kuwait intercepting incoming Iranian drones, reporting damage at key civilian infrastructure, including an oil refinery and water desalination plant. And in Bahrain, sirens sounding this morning after multiple Iranian drones were shot down. The Gulf nation says the attacks were targeting civilians. And Jordan's armed forces said they intercepted 10 Iranian missiles this morning, as well as 4 unmanned drones in the last 24 hours. This new round of aggression by the regime comes after U.S. forces conducted its 7th straight night of attacks on Iran, hitting key bridges, underground weapons storage facilities, and surveillance sites. And a final deal with the regime still in limbo after Iran's deputy foreign minister says Tehran is suspending the commitments it agreed to in the Memorandum of Understanding. Retired 4-star general and a Fox News strategic analyst, Jack Keane, joins me now with analysis. General Keane, the Wall Street Journal reported earlier in the week that President Trump was weighing escalation. That could be an attack on Pickaxe Mountain, could be something with the Strait of Hormuz. Do you think that it is escalated, and what do you think that action looks like?
Yeah, well, certainly. I mean, what actually happened here, we know we signed a memorandum of understanding, both presidents, Iranian and American, on June the 17th. And the only agreement that was in that memorandum of understanding was open the Straits of Hormuz. We remove our blockade, Iran removes any interference or control. And everything else was a promise of 60 days negotiations to solve all the tough issues. Within days of signing that agreement, Iran violated the agreement and began to continue to control the Straits of Hormuz. As a result of that, President Trump was not going to stand for that. He understands that's international waterways. Iran cannot make a claim to it. And we are where we are as a result of it. We're 7 days into an operation to take control of the Straits of Hormuz. It is condition-based, based on the enemy and what we're achieving in terms of our goals, and achieving that will determine how long it takes to do that. Planning time is about 2 weeks, but as I said, it's based on the conditions. And what are we doing? We're denying them the ability to fire into the Straits by taking control of the missiles, drones, and fast boats in the immediate area, logistical support, the command and control. We're isolating that area. That's why we're blowing up bridges. And we're also taking away their capability to retaliate, which you described very accurately. Retaliate against what? Against the Gulf, countries in the region, against U.S. bases in the region. And we have to take that capability down to be effective here. And that's ballistic missiles and their launchers, and also drones. And then the third thing that Iran has the option of doing here is obviously expanding this to the Bab al-Mandab Strait, bringing the Houthis into it, and also attacking Israel. I don't believe they will do the latter, because Israel will come back at them in a very fierce way. But that is what is in front of us. I think the president's made the right call here. He also realized that negotiating with them, even though the diplomats are supposed to be moderates and they're dealing with hardliners who are running the regime, the truth is there is one regime here. The diplomats through multiple presidents have always expressed a moderate role. We desire to coexist with the United States of America. So listen, we're on a pathway here. It's the right path to shut these guys down from taking control of the Straits of Hormuz.
General Keane, let me ask you about this. We have not deployed all capabilities that we have to open the strait, is what General McKenzie said. He said it would require putting warships into narrow waters. The U.S. Navy doesn't love to do that, but they're very good at it. Is there more we could do to secure Hormuz?
No, we're doing just about everything. We're not at a phase yet where we need to escort ships through the Straits of Hormuz. We have to get rid of the capability there that can interfere with that kind of shipping and also interfere with U.S. naval ships. That would be a phase to come later, what General McKenzie is talking about here. And listen, so our audience understands what is all the fuss about here. The Straits of Hormuz is Iran's #1 strategic asset. It used to be nuclear weapons, but their nuclear enterprise is buried under a mountain of rubble. Their #1 strategic asset is this. Why? Because it influences the other Gulf states. They use it as leverage, and look at what it did. On February 28th, we went to war. On March the 2nd, they shut down the Straits of Hormuz, and it immediately began to have an effect, not just on the region, but the world economy. It exceeded their expectations in terms of what the outcome was. That is why they are absolutely trying to maintain control of this, and they're willing to fight to maintain that control. That is really what has taken place here.
General Jack Keane, always appreciate your expertise. Thank you so much for your time this Saturday.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.